Hi, this is Chris Pritchard. This is the 1000-second podcast, and I'm here to talk about Dog and Butterfly by Heart.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stephen, and you're listening to the 1000-second album podcast. This season, we'll be talking about must-hear songs as I continue to ask people that are important to me all about the music that's important to them. Enjoy! Please welcome Chris Pritchard.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Yes, and the song of choice today is Dog and Butterfly by Heart. And Chris, can you start by telling me a bit about your introduction to the band, your intro to Heart?
Yeah, Heart, I only started listening to them in maybe the early to mid-'80s, even though they've been around since like the mid-'70s. They had already recorded about 5 or 6 albums by the time I started listening to them. But what got me into Heart, of course, we think of Heart, you know, their famous songs like Barracuda, and there's numerous others. But the one song that really resonated with me was Dog and Butterfly, the self-titled album that was released in 1978. Surprisingly, it only peaked, I think, to number 34 on the billboards. But it still gets a little bit of radio play. What impacted me with this song was, back when I was like in my elementary years, you know, I was bullied a bit. Not to make this a sob story or woe is me, but I mean, that's all in the past. But I listened to this song over and over, and that's what really helped soothe this, I guess, pain, if you want to call it.
Sure.
And of course, yes, I'm old, Mr. Steven, but I bought this album when it first came out on cassette.
We still have plenty of those here, too.
Oh, yeah. No, I still have lots, but, you know, it just had a positive influence on me.
For sure. And with the cassette, you really had to work to re-listen to it too, because you'd have to rewind and get it just at the right spot.
Yeah, well, and of course, back in my day, of course, maybe you can relate. You know, we had those Walkmans.
Yep. Oh yes.
Of course, you know, and the tape would always get stuck in there, and
there's that saying that I'm holding a pencil now as well. That a pencil and a tape, if you're of a certain vintage like us, you know what those two things are used for. So, no, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you mentioned your gateway was in the early to mid 80s, even though they were formed in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason that this group hasn't really been on my radar that much, because a lot of my early influences would have been my dad's, the music he really liked from the late 60s. Mm-hmm. And then the stuff I really got into was in the early 90s. So this was somewhere in that window in between. And so it sort of, and especially, or maybe even surprisingly, it didn't end up, none of their albums were in that 1001 albums you must hear book. Mm-hmm. And so beyond the, like you mentioned, the big radio hits of the Barracuda and they seemed like very up-tempo rock songs. Mm-hmm. I wasn't too aware of their music, but which is where I really enjoyed this one, because it felt like a real change of pace of the acoustic guitars and a more gentle delivery. Yeah. And are there details about the song musically that you really like? Are there sort of aspects of the song that you really enjoy?
The beauty of this song is there's so many interpretations people can take away from this song. As Ann Wilson, who sang this song, like one of the Wilson sisters, excellent vocalist and musician, by the way. Her interpretation was, so see the dog and butterfly, up in the air he likes to fly, dog and butterfly, below she had to try. She rolled back down to this warm soft ground laughing. She don't know why, dog and butterfly. So it's like the dog trying to make friends with the butterfly, never quite catching the butterfly, but never giving up. And the whole story of this song is perseverance and never giving up. And I think that goes hand in hand with my impact too. Like it, and I have to admit, like just the melody of it.
Yes.
Again, like a lot of songs, melody is a big thing with me.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big fan of Heart too.
Yeah.
So of course, okay, I'm not gonna deny that.
Which doesn't hurt.
No. In fact, they came to Kingston once. I regret not seeing them, but hopefully, I mean, I hear they're on tour again. Hopefully, they'll come. Maybe if they do, hopefully. But
fingers crossed.
Yeah, but I guess it's just that message of never giving up.
For sure.
Never giving up and persevering.
Yeah. And I really like how, in addition to those, like the lyrics that have that nice impact as well, the delivery often, you mentioned the melody makes a big difference, and often the delivery to me is a big feature as well. And their voices just pair so well together that it's Anne and Nancy, the sisters. Yeah. And just towards the end of the song, they've got some really nice vocal harmonies that happen over top of the dog and butterfly sentence there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. And what I really like too about the voice is that for the most part, it was really subdued, but on the odd line, you could see she had that really nice soaring, like the high vocals. So even though it wasn't the sort of rock that some of their other singles would be, there was still that little glimpse of the sort of powerful instrument she has in her voice.
And that's what makes them unique above other bands, I think. Yeah, because they have that talent.
Yeah.
And just to add, like, I think, you know, like there has been more female bands even then, but they were, I think, one of the pioneers to really pave the way for other like female rock stars, whether they want to be in a band or whether want to be solo. So that's what I love about Heart. Period. But this song was just one that I wanted to share. Like totally, it just resonated with me, and
for sure. And I'm glad you did too, because if the stars align, hopefully I'll get to teach the guitar class again in the future.
Yes.
And if that were to happen, this is one I'd love to bring into the class, because it's a really good example of a lot of the things we talked about with the different sort of the types of chords, where there's some of them in here that are the very, like the major, the happy sounding, the minor, the sad sounding, or the sort of suspended or sounding unfinished. And just like there's a really nice, there's plenty of things we could talk about that way.
Yeah.
And there's it sounds like there's a 12-string guitar in it where they're plucking the individual notes there.
Yeah.
And it just rings so nicely.
No, I mean, you've got the Wilson sisters, plus there's like another rhythm guitarist in there, I believe. So you have lots of rhythm. But what I think I maybe mentioned this before, what I love about this is that this is the type of song where you can take away so many different interpretations. Like anybody can have their own kind of interpretation of this song. You know, it's not just about what Ann Wilson says. You know, I read some reviews of this song, and there were parents who had lost a child, and they listened to this song, and that helped them cope through. So, which, you know, is, I mean, if the Wilsons are listening, but probably not. But, you have a great song here. Yeah. I believe so.
Nice.
Yep.
And I agree with you completely that it's definitely a great song. And is there any other reason why you'd call it a must-hear song?
If you're into ballads, I believe it's one of the best. But I guess just listen to it and form your own opinion about it. Yes. And maybe you can take something away from it. Yeah. That's about all.
And I think that's it exactly, where I saw a really good Dave Grohl quote recently, where he was talking about what it's like to play in front of thousands of people. And he said one of the most powerful things is that you can play a song for thousands of people, and the audience will have thousands of meanings for that same song.
Exactly.
Like it might have been played on the greatest day of their life. It might have been played during a tragedy. Yeah. And it's got a different resonance for each person, but it speaks to them.
And that's what this is about too.
And I think, I love these songs too, where you might not hear it for a couple of years, but then you hear it and you're immediately transported back to sort of how it helped us through challenging times. And I think that's the real power of music, is that even like it's wonderful to have in a celebratory sense, like at a wedding or you name it, the music can be a lot of fun. But I find it's probably at its most impactful when things are going tough.
Yeah. And it's not about all being like feeling sad too. It's just honestly, you can take happiness out of this song too. You can, because it's the dog befriending the butterfly, which I mean, I know it might sound a bit sappy, but that's exactly what this song's about too. Yeah. I mean, it both has a sad and a happy. Yeah,
which is probably the most interesting music or lyrics, where there's room for different interpretations, where it's not spelling it out necessarily of here's the takeaway message, because she might, I think you, like you said, maybe the initial message was when things get tough, keep going, but it could be that someone has an entirely different take on it, and it ends up being equally meaningful to them, which is a wonderful thing. Yeah,
and I didn't realize, like, it. I'm surprised it didn't get higher on the charts, but I do hear it now and then on the radio, but.
And I gather they continue to play it live. So if we're lucky enough for them to come to Kingston, I gather it's still in the set list as well. So and it's funny, those ones, like, you never know what ends up being the hit single necessarily, but sometimes, and so it's nice when there's these ones that are a little bit under the radar perhaps, but end up having a big impact nonetheless. So. Well, a huge thank you for coming today, Chris, and until the next time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me there, Jeff.
My pleasure. Enjoy. This has been the 1000 Second Album Podcast. Thanks for sharing some of your time, energy, and attention with us today. Take care.